Go ahead and look at the Champions League table right now. Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, City, all top 8 cruising into the round of 16. Oh, finally, the Premier League supremacy finally proven on the European stage. Yeah. How about that? What if I told you this table is basically lying to you? Alright, so here's the thing. We're in year 2 of this new Champions League format, where instead of playing the same 4 teams twice, you get 8 random opponents pulled from strength-based pots. In my humble opinion, it's created some genuinely cool matchups we wouldn't normally see. But the thing is, you're only playing 8 teams out of a possible 36. That's only 22% of the competition. And who you draw, well, that's basically a lottery. And yeah, so far, English clubs have been crushing it. 6 Premier League teams in the top 11, 5 in the top 8. Germany, Spain, Portugal, 1 representative each, and it's not even a competition at this level. The money advantage is absolutely real. Deeper squads, better players, more options when injuries hit. But there's something else going on too. The Premier League is just built differently. The intensity is absolutely relentless, and these teams show up to Europe and just overwhelm people. The moment that captures it perfectly was when Mickey van de Ven literally ran the full length of the field against Copenhagen, with defenders bouncing off him like he's in a different weight class. Chelsea turned Barcelona into a mid-table side for 90 minutes, and Arsenal made Atletico Madrid look undersized in the Haram Derby. It's a different level of physicality that other continental sides didn't match over 8 games. So that's it, case closed, right? Premier League teams are just better. Hold up. The final match day came and it was chaotic. All 18 games kicking off simultaneously. Real Madrid started off sitting comfortably in 3rd place with 15 points. They just needed to avoid disaster against Benfica, who've got 6 points and are basically playing for their lives. Surely Madrid will see this one out. Surely.
It's elimination or glory. Auschwitz takes.
The result? Real Madrid dropped to 9th. They're in the playoff rounds now, having to grind through extra games in February, while other teams get a free ride to March. Meanwhile, Tottenham, who have been struggling all season, they finished 4th with 17 points. But when you actually looked at who they played, I'd argue Tottenham had a noticeably easier schedule than Real Madrid. Like the opponents that Spurs faced collectively scored fewer points, which gave them more potentially winnable games. So here's the uncomfortable question. Did Tottenham earn that spot because they're still world class when it matters? Or did they just catch a more favorable draw that masked their whole decline this season? Did Real Madrid deserve to drop out of the top 8? Or did they get punished for facing tougher opponents? Because those are very different stories, and the table just doesn't tell you which one is real. And this isn't just me being a conspiracy theorist. The schedule variance is wild. Some teams faced opponents who collectively scored way more points than others. Goal difference becomes way easier when you're playing against weaker sides. So if you draw tougher opponents, you get punished twice. Fewer points and worse tiebreakers. We just might not know who's actually good anymore. We just know who had the best combination of talent and schedule luck. It gets even more interesting and honestly kind of tragic for English teams. If you're around for the 90s, you might remember that Italian clubs made every Champions League final from 92 to 98. 7 straight years of absolute dominance at this stage of the competition. But they only won twice. Why? By the time May rolled around, they were absolutely cooked, completely ground down by the intensity of Serie A, while Ajax and Dortmund showed up fresh from less demanding leagues. Now look at the pattern from last year. Arsenal absolutely demolished PSG in the group stage, and then lost it in the semis. Liverpool topped the entire league phase, lost to PSG in the round of 16. It's not about PSG suddenly figuring something out, it is all about when you play them. By April, Premier League teams have played 40 plus games of absolute war. Every single match is a battle because even relegation threshold teams can physically dominate you if you're not switched on. Meanwhile, a Bayern, Real Madrid, or Barcelona, they're competing financially, yes, but their leagues just aren't the same weekly meat grinder. They show up to April quarterfinals significantly fresher. That is a massive advantage. And I think it's ironic that some English clubs might be getting less battle tested in easier group stage draws while simultaneously getting more exhausted from the Premier League gauntlet. They're showing up to knockout rounds less sharp and more tired. That's not exactly the recipe for success. I mean, if you look at it, only 3 times has an English club won the Champions League in the last 10 years, despite having multiple teams in the semis nearly every season. That's the unfortunate part of this. There is dominance in the group stage table, but ultimately disappointment when it actually matters. Alright, here's what I'm watching out for because it could get really interesting. We're heading deep into February now and playoff rounds are about to kick off. The likes of Real Madrid, PSG, they're about to get 2 extra high stakes games, while the majority of English clubs that went straight through are playing Premier League matches, grinding through domestic competitions, and accumulating miles and fatigue. But those playoff games everyone thinks are a punishment, they might actually be a gift. Yeah, Madrid's playing extra games, but those games are European games, high stakes, high intensity. That's where they thrive at, and that keeps you sharp. Meanwhile, English teams are getting battered by relegation candidates on cold Wednesday nights. And then March hits, round of 16. Everyone's back on equal footing, except some teams have been in European competition mode and others have been in pure survival mode. So look, right now 6 English teams are advancing, 5 straight to the knockouts. The numbers do scream dominance, and honestly it's impressive on the surface, but we're kind of watching 2 different competitions unfold here. There's the fall version where English clubs look untouchable. And then there's the spring version where that same energy will probably just fade. And the table sitting in front of us can't tell you which one you're actually seeing. It can't tell you Spurs had an easier draw. It can't tell you Madrid will show up fresher in April. It just shows points and says, good luck figuring it out. That's what makes this whole thing fascinating to me. Not that English teams are dominating right now, but whether that dominance actually means anything when it counts. So maybe this is the year. Maybe this is when an English side finally breaks through again and the whole fatigue narrative gets proven wrong. That would be a hell of a story. But if I'm being honest, I really am not putting any money on it. History's been pretty clear about how this usually plays out, and until someone actually lifts that trophy in May wearing a Premier League badge and proves the pattern is broken, I'm treating these group stage standings like a really nice first impression, but they might not hold up on the second date. Yes, right now the table is loud, but trophies just simply aren't won in January.